Welcome back to the channel. I'm the Fantasy Football Strategist, and in today's video, Malik Nabers has been described as the focal point of the Giants' offense. We're going to go over some advanced stats, where he fits into this offense, and then reasonably project where he might finish the season in terms of wide receivers. Please remember to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. So, in an article from the NewYorkTimes.com written by Dan Duggan, some observations from camp. Get the ball to Nabers. It's already obvious that first-round pick Malik Nabers is going to be a focal point of the offense. The Giants have gotten the ball to Nabers in a variety of ways in the first two practices of camp. Nabers caught a short touchdown pass from Daniel Jones after beating cornerback Trey Hawkins on a slant route on Thursday. Nabers could have had another touchdown after again beating Hawkins, but Jones' pass was behind the wide receiver, who failed to secure the catch. So we did expect this coming into camp. They're somewhat devoid of talent on offense, besides Malik Nabers, obviously, including, unfortunately, the quarterback position. So it is good news that he's being used as the focal point. It would obviously make no sense for you to draft somebody 6th overall and then not even attempt to use them. So this is the kind of news that we would expect coming out of camp. The article continues, Nabers has gotten the ball on a reverse in each of the first two practices. He also made a catch on the slide route the Giants have used regularly the past two seasons, with a wide receiver running parallel to the line of scrimmage and catching a pass on the flat after a play fake in the opposite direction. That was an exceptionally effective play for the Giants in 2022, and it could become more dynamic with the explosive Nabers getting the ball in space. So it looks like they're trying to just get the ball into his hands as quickly as possible to avoid having Daniel Jones really make hard decisions or have to throw the ball very far, which is good news if you're Malik Nabers. One thing to like is he is one of the best yards after catch prospects we've seen in some time. This guy is dynamic with the ball in his hands. He is essentially one of the best athletes at the wide receiver position. It was also mentioned that he had a false start in the red zone, which is to be expected. He's new to the team. He's getting used to the offense. It's going to happen from time to time, so that's definitely not big news at all. The key point here is that they're trying to get Malik Nabers the ball in space and in the short area of the field to both reduce Daniel Jones' ability to make mistakes and increase Malik Nabers' ability to make something out of nothing. When we look at Malik Nabers' profile, he's 6 foot 200 pounds with 31-inch arms, and he was drafted 6th overall by the Giants out of LSU. He is still only 21 years old. He was extremely young coming out. I mean, he's still a rookie, so he's still coming out, but you know what I mean. What this means is he is most likely nowhere remotely close to his ceiling. If a player is coming out at age 24, you're generally much closer to the age apex of 26 for a wide receiver. So we can expect big things now, but we can expect even better things for him in the future. Looking at some of his metrics, it further goes to show how much of an elite athlete this guy really is. He ran an unofficial 4.35 40-yard dash at his pro day, but Player Profiler adds 0.05 seconds to an unofficial 40-yard dash because of hand timing. So it's probably somewhere in the middle there. Probably like a 4.38. 4.38 is a commonly used one for him. Looking at that speed score, though, at a 105.3 score, it's in the 85th percentile among wide receivers, and that's with the 0.05 seconds added. It actually should be a little bit higher than that. Then his 135.9 burst score is in the 98th percentile among wide receivers. And what that goes to show is how explosive of an athlete Malik Nabers is. And his 10.18 catch radius is in the 80th percentile among wide receivers. All in all, these are extremely impressive stats and really go to show how impressive of an athlete Malik Nabers truly is. So Matt Harmon charted out Malik Nabers' route percentage and success rate with specific routes from this past season. It's really impressive. So if you look at the left chart, that's his route percentage. He generally does a lot of outs, digs, and curl routes. Generally doesn't do flats, slants, or screens quite as often, but that's more so a product of the LSU offense as opposed to him specifically being poor at those routes, which you can obviously tell from his route success percentage on the right. He has green in all but 3 routes, and admittedly, the 3 routes in which he is not green in are below average, which is why they're red. And you'll see later he's very good against press coverage, so I wouldn't be too worried there. But overall, an extremely impressive success by route chart there, and really just goes to show that not only is he an elite athlete, he's also an elite talent as an actual wide receiver. Looking at his collegiate stats, in his freshman year he had over 400 yards, then he bumped it up to a little bit over 1,000, and this past season he had over 1,500 receiving yards. The upward trajectory in production is exactly what you want to see from wide receivers coming out of college. So looking at a couple of advanced stats in terms of his success against man, zone, and press coverage, at least this past season, he was successful 74% of the time, which is in the 84th percentile against man coverage. That is elite, as evidenced by being an 84th percentile winner in that regard. This guy is going to be amazing on third downs for the Giants, especially against man blitzes. And with them using him on short routes, that's exactly what's going to be effective against the blitz on third downs. It does go on to say that he had a 79% success rate, which is only in the 46th percentile against zone. But that's right around average. He can get better at that. It's not as worrying as some of these other prospects where it might be in the 20th or 30th percentile. That's essentially average. And it's fine to have a weakness as a prospect where it's just average. It's not as if it's terrible or anything. But then he goes on to have a 72nd percentile success rate, which is in the 78th percentile against press coverage, which for being 6 foot 200 is really impressive. He's not this humongous wide receiver that can just throw people left and right. He has to have the precision. I mean, he's strong, but he has to have the precision to beat press coverage, which is an important skill to have, especially if you're going to be used on the outside on the line of scrimmage. So that does bode well for his career progression and potentially being used at the X. Looking at a couple of statistics, among at least 125 Power 5 wide receivers from 22 through 23, so 2 years worth of data, he was second in overall receiving grade, 12th in passer rating when targeted, he was second in receiving yards, he was 8th in receiving touchdowns, 4th in yards per route run, which is a very, very sticky stat that correlates to success at the NFL level. He was 20th in yards per reception, but then again, he was used as a short area target a lot of the time. He was used deep at times, and he can absolutely win deep. Don't get me wrong there. He is very good deep. But that's more so of a usage thing and a scheme thing in the offense. Brian Thomas, for instance, was one of the higher yards per catch and yards per target guys, and that's because he was the vertical player for them, while Malik Nabers 8 underneath. And his targets per route run was 21st among these 125 qualified receivers. But that's more so of a thing where a lot of teams will only have one bona fide wide receiver. He also had to contend with Brian Thomas Jr., who was also a first-round wide receiver. So it's actually really impressive that he's still right around 20th despite playing with somebody that talented. Looking at the Giants' depth chart, it's absolutely atrocious, as you might expect. Daniel Jones is their quarterback. They can get out of him, I believe, after this season without at least an insurmountably large amount of dead cap. And I do project they'll definitely try to get out after the season. That contract extension made no sense at the time. Just yuck. And he's also failed to stay healthy. He's coming back from a knee injury this season. Just yikes. And even when he plays, he's really not good. Honestly, Drew Lock is probably a similar talent for them. I don't know how hurt I would be if Drew Lock got a start over him. Then at running back, they're reasonably weak too. They signed Devin Singletary. They have Eric Gray. Nothing to really speak of there. Singletary's he's a fine running back, but he's not extraordinary or anything. Then obviously they drafted Malik Nabers 6th. He's going to be their bona fide wide receiver 1. He will receive many more targets than the next highest player, regardless of their position in this offense. They have Darius Slayton. He's just a vertical receiver that doesn't really ever get more than 800 yards in a season, and that was before they drafted Malik Nabers. I'd be shocked if he had that many this year. Wan'Dale Robinson's good from the slot. He can play Z as well. You don't want him on the line of scrimmage. He's no threat to Malik Nabers. Jalen Hyatt's just a vertical receiver meant to take the top off the defenses and make them respect the deep game. Robinson is absolutely washed. Isaiah McKenzie's fine. At tight end, they drafted Theo Johnson. He is nursing an injury right now. He does project to be their receiving tight end after Darren Waller retired. And Bellinger is a fine tight end as well, but he's probably going to be asked to block a little bit more, especially with them drafting Theo Johnson. But looking at this depth chart, what do you think? I mean, I think it's quite evident that Malik Nabers is going to eat in this offense. Even if it's an ineffective offense, he is going to be receiving such a high target share that I just don't see how he's not going to be at least reasonably successful. Looking at the positions in which Malik Nabers will play in this offense, he's going to be used at X, Y, and Z. Remember that X is on the line of scrimmage, facing press coverage a good amount of the time. Well, he had a 78th percentile success rate against press coverage, so you shouldn't be worried about that in any way, shape, or form. But I think he's going to be utilized primarily at the Y position or the slot, because while he is good against press coverage, he's even better when he gets a free release. Plus, that allows them to put him in motion and get a running head start, and we all know how electric he is. And if you allow him a running start, you're probably just not catching him. Then he'll also play some Z, which is also off the line of scrimmage, and it's going to give him free releases. He has absolute positional versatility in this offense. He's the best part of this offense, and if they don't feed him the ball incessantly, Brian Daboll will be bye-bye. Looking at where he's going as the wide receiver 20 in redraft leagues. I think that's reasonably close to his ceiling. I think like a reasonable ceiling could maybe be about wide receiver 15 this year, but that has nothing to do with his talent. It's really just the Giants aren't probably going to be scoring a lot of points. Daniel Jones is terrible. The quality of targets is really just going to be poor, so that's why I wouldn't project too much of a higher finish, but he could absolutely be the wide receiver 20. In fact, DraftSharks projects him to be the wide receiver 21, so just under that wide receiver 20 price tag. They project 80 catches for about 1,020 yards and a little over 6 touchdowns. That's reasonable. I wouldn't project too many more touchdowns just because I think they're not going to be scoring very many touchdowns. But I think his receptions and yards could be a little bit higher, especially his receptions. It would be fair to project him for around 140 targets in this offense because who else are they going to? And they're going to be losing and just be bad in general. So with what projects to be an extremely high target share, I could easily see him being potentially being a high-end wide receiver 2, but probably more of a mid to low-end wide receiver 2 this season. So that's what I think. I think they are going to use him as the focal point of the offense. I think that's plain as day evident. I think he's going to be extremely successful if they utilize him how the article states they're using him in practices, which is in the short area of the field to reduce Daniel Jones' ability to miss him and utilize Malik Nabers' elite yards after catch skills. This guy is amazing after the catch. But what do you think? Do you think Malik Nabers is a good fit in this offense? Do you project him to be a wide receiver 2, higher than that, lower than that? Let me know in the comment section and let me know why. With that being said, I'm the Fantasy Football Strategist, your NFL breaking news source, and the dynasty and redraft implications behind said breaking news. I am building a library of information with which you can use to dominate your redraft and dynasty leagues in 2024 and beyond. Please remember to like and subscribe. It would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you and have a good day.